When Pooja Arya got married nearly 3 years ago, there was no question of moving in with her in-laws, as most young women in India do following their wedding day. "My husband and I are both independent-minded," she says. "I thought it would be more fun to live on our own." After renting a place for 18 months, Arya, a camera operator for a popular television channel, and her financial journalist husband were able to purchase a brand new flat in Gurgaon, a suburb of New Delhi that has sprung up over the last decade, as multinational companies set up headquarters and call centers in what had been an undeveloped area south of the capital. And they are not alone among young Indian couples in forsaking the joint family system. A combination of shifting social mores and economic changes has pushed Arya's generation towards a more modern lifestyle that includes homeownership. One of the main drivers of the trend is an evolving credit business, which now gives young Indians access to home loans, not previously available. Rising employment and the need for a more mobile workforce means that professionals must frequently move to a city different from the one where they grew up to pursue a career, Mumbai for finance, say, or Bangalore for technology. Women have also taken on jobs in droves in the past decade, giving rise to India's own dinks, double income, no kids, who have enough money to leave the home they once shared with mummy and papa and cover a monthly mortgage payment. So the extended family is set to make a comeback in Britain, research carried out by a building society reveals. It is easy to see why grown-up children can't afford to move out of the family home. What with booming property prices and student loans to pay back, grandparents are living longer and can't afford the cost of residential care. Some might see this as a good thing. Children can bond with their grandparents, who are so much wiser and more patient than their parents. And if there is childcare to be done, the old folks are there to do it, in return for being looked after themselves. Think of all the money to be saved. But as someone who spent the early years of childhood in just such a setup, believe me, it's not all good news. For the first 4 years of my life, I lived in the villa in Budapest that my mother had built during her heyday as a popular singer in the late 1930s. Her father, a village headmaster, had contributed to the building costs and planned to move there with his wife, my grandmother, when he retired. This they did, in 1948. By then my parents had married and soon they had 2 children. I learned much later, when I was old enough to understand such things, that as soon as my grandparents moved in, life got worse for my father. My stern Victorian grandfather felt that as he had paid in part for the villa, he was a rightful owner, the real head of the household, and my father a little more than a tenant. He answered the phone with the words, Raj residence, his own name, and when a friend of my parents gave them a handsome wrought iron nameplate bearing both their surnames, it vanished from the front gate within days, never has been seen again. Guest speaker Charlotte Allen brought a wholly unexpected message to the college in her talk on March 29. Traditional extended families allowed women more freedom, privacy, power and self-worth than they gain from the fragmented families and communities produced by the modern cult of self-fulfillment, she argued. Extended families have been the basic social unit worldwide and throughout history, even when people physically reside in nuclear households, Allen claimed, citing several studies. People in such families have important relationships with different family members so that their self-worth and contentment do not depend on a lifelong emotional and intellectual romance with their spouses. Allen described a way of life that is now largely abandoned in the West. It was characterized by families bound by duty and necessity rather than by a quest for self-fulfillment. They were economically productive units in which women did socially respected work in or near the home, children helped with chores, and older people helped raise children. Allen read an excerpt by feminist author Germaine Greer that described a mid-20th century Italian family. The married couple grew apart as their romance wore off, but maintained a web of relationships with in-laws, siblings and parents. In contrast, Allen explained, American women who moved to the suburbs after World War II found themselves isolated from any extended family or community. Their only long-term relationships were within the household, and they were forced into inescapable intimacy with only one person. Their husbands became their only source of adult conversation. Suddenly, women began noticing that men weren't supportive or responsive and didn't share their feelings. Their discontent focused on the only family relationships they had left.